Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome. I'm Shazia joining you on the Nutrition Show on Unity FM 93.5 FM. I'm really excited to have you all join me today for a discussion on topics related to nutrition, which I hope will serve you and your family, your loved ones, and those who you influence with better health and well-being. So as always, before I get into the topic of the day, I want to remind listeners that the information that I share on today's show is general in nature. It's not intended for any one individual. It's meant to be something that's there that could help anyone at any time. You do need to look into your specifics if you are managing a medical condition or you have particular concerns. And as always, you must always seek medical advice from your own medical practitioner. So today's topic I wanted to keep quite general, and what I wanted to share with you is, on a very sort of foundational basis, what can everyone do to help support and make their diet more healthy? Now, I find when I'm working with clients, people are either really overwhelmed and they're like, where do I start? Or they're well on their way to eating well in terms of having really succeeded in making good changes for themselves and their family. So there's quite a range of people out there. And I think sometimes rather than kind of making it very specific or very general, I think there's something that everyone can do that they can take on board in some shape or form. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. It can be part of it. It could be maybe, 2/3 of it, maybe even a third, maybe even do one of the things I suggest today, for yourself or for your family or a loved one, and see how that makes you feel. I think that's the main thing. You'll notice the change for yourself. And this is what actually convinced me. I started to feel changes in my own body, in my own soul, in my own mind, when I started to make food changes. Believe it or not, it's actually so impactful that I didn't need to convince other people. What I wanted people to do was to see for themselves that actually this is so powerful that anyone can actually take control of their own health. Obviously, we need support and we need that guidance from healthcare professionals and expertise that we seek out when we're looking for a particular condition or whatever the case may be. But there's so much that we can do ourselves, and this is what I find fascinating, and I just absolutely love that we can all be ambassadors to our own health. We need to kind of have that control and then seek out the support at the same time. So, don't be overwhelmed. Start where you're at. I always say this, start where you're at and make progress. And that progress can be as slow as needed. It could be something that you've done really well and then you've gone back on. That's okay. It doesn't matter. The point is that you should always be moving forward as a net movement. And don't compare yourself to anyone else, because you are not anyone else. Everyone is fighting their own battle, whether it be, financially, whether it be socially, whether it be by relationships, whatever it may be. And food is another battle that we have. So everyone has their unique combination of challenges. And I think it's something that people need to recognize and not compare themselves with others with, because all it does is it sets you back. And your body may need something different to somebody else's body, on a very intricate level. And that's when you need to work with a practitioner. Always seek out somebody who's appropriately qualified, and get advice before working with someone to make sure that you're safe and you're not going to be harmed in any way. But on the whole, there are things that you can do. And that's what I want to kind of jump into today. So have a pen and paper ready if you want to take notes, if it's helpful, or just hear me through, because I'm keeping this as casual as possible. So the key thing to remember is start with something and try and keep it consistent. So if something works for you, you like something, try and make it a routine activity. That will really help. What do I mean by that? So, for example, if you found a smoothie recipe that you really like, and if you haven't got the energy right now to kind of change it up or make it more exciting, or try something different in terms of another smoothie, that's okay. just be consistent with how often you make it. So if you're making enough, say for a day or two, if you've got a family, go ahead and make enough. But then make sure you make some more 2 or 3 days later. Don't just kind of do a one off and then leave it, because you want the consistency. And that oftentimes that's the hardest thing. So when you get your family on board or your partner on board or whoever you're kind of, teaming up with, because this is another really key thing to do, you can hold each other accountable and make sure that, you're kind of encouraging each other on. That's a really key thing as well. So find that accountability partner when you start to make change, because remember, nutrition changes are lifelong. It's not something you can do short term. They're not quick wins. They're not things that you can do once and then forget about and then think, oh, this is it, I've done what I could. It's something that's long term, so you've got to be in it for the long run. So start where you're at. Don't punish yourself if you go wrong, and make it something that you enjoy. You want to make it something that you can do on a continual basis, improve yourself, grow with. And yeah, so don't be kind of put off if you don't achieve what you initially set out to do. And this talk is kind of there to give you some ideas, really. It's not to kind of dictate to you or anything of that nature. It's to give you some ideas. You may have already thought of these before. If you want to share some ideas, feel free to, call up and share your feedback on what's worked for you. Remember, the more we share information like this, the more people we can try and benefit. And, helping out people on a larger scale, I think, is always really amazing. And it's something that our faith teaches us as well. It's about looking after the greater good, even if it means that one or two maybe have to bear the brunt of that particular, situation, whatever it may be. But saying that, every individual is important. So that's what I would say. So I've talked about some of these things before, and I think it's nice just to bring them back in again. So remember, eating in a situation where you're mindful. So remember, mindfulness is about being present in the moment. It's about thinking about the process of eating itself. How many of us are just kind of rushing around like headless chickens day in, day out? It doesn't really serve us when it comes to our food, because our body is in what we know as flight or fight mode, and it's not digesting. It hasn't got time to think about digesting, because what your body is physiologically doing is it's running away from a lion. So this primitive kind of a response to this stress that we're experiencing as a result of running around all day crazy, is very much like that. That's what the body is perceiving. So if you're not going to be in a relaxed state to eat, don't expect your digestion to be great, and don't expect your absorption to be great, and therefore, everything that comes as a result of. So try and find, even if it's out of the 3 meals or whatever you have a day, a moment of the day when you can just sit in peace and have your lunch. Now, if that means you need to share the stress levels with somebody, then do that, because it's going to still benefit you. But, find that one meal of the day when you can just sit and eat in peace. No phones, no TV. If you can occupy your kids at the time or whatever it may be, that's kind of, making you feel kind of stressed, etc., then please manage that however you need to, whether it be planning the day before or, sorting out, childcare or whatever it may be. But, find that time that you can sit down, think about what you're consuming, appreciate, enjoy, and, allow your body to be in a restful state. So that's the rest and digest mode. That's where you need to be. And, it's easy to say. I've been there myself. When we're stressed out consistently, it doesn't work. But it does work wonders when you can get it to work for you. And obviously, in the ideal world, we want to be doing that for every meal. But, we don't live in the ideal world, unfortunately. So try and do that for at least one meal a day, and start again, with one, even if it's every day or every other day, once a week, even whenever and wherever you can put it in. It does help very much. So at the same time, you want to be chewing your food thoroughly. You want to be able to kind of really switch off from those kind of, difficult moments, so to speak, that are, we're all going through, and benefit from the food that you've got in front of you. I mean, we're very fortunate we've got, we're still people who have access to food, round the clock. But you want to really be, making that a ritual for yourself. Okay, so a lot of things that people do and benefit from when they kind of join a nutritional service or they work with a practitioner is looking at easy swaps. Now, I find that adding something to someone's diet is far better than depriving my client. So, what do I mean by that? So, for example, I would say to someone who's consuming white bread to swap that out for some brown bread or wholemeal or something similar, something that is in its whole form, not in the refined state, so that they are balancing their blood sugars far better using a whole grain option than using a refined version of carbohydrate. So that's something that you can do. Likewise, you can do on occasion sweet potato instead of white potato. You can do kale crisps instead of regular crisps. Very easy to make. So all you're doing is washing some kale, putting some salt on there, a little bit of a quality olive oil, and then you can bake it in the oven for a few minutes until crisp, and you've got your kale crisps. Really easy. You can also do this occasionally again to begin with if it's something that you can't kind of fight off. You can use a hummus dip, or you can use guacamole. You can use baba ganoush in place of mayonnaise. Again, an example that gives you more nutrients from your food just by swapping out the less nutritious version of a food for a more nutritious version. And you can do this for your kids as well. Look at what they're eating and look for a healthier alternative and swap them out. If you're doing pop, you want to try and come away from pop. I know it's difficult if it's something that you always consume. Think about sparkling water. Think about flavored waters that you can make at home. These will take a lot of time, because what you're actually doing is you're realigning your palate, as I call it, for my clients. You're kind of reprogramming those taste buds, because the foods that we've been consuming for so long, they are habits, aren't they? They're our way to go. They're how we kind of stimulate and satisfy our taste buds. But we have to try then to undo what we've known and what we've been used to, and redo that. Very much like learning a new subject in the same field, and allow for your body then to become better in itself, because you're giving it more nutritious options. So start where you're at, as I've mentioned, and work your way through these healthy swaps. I mean, you can go onto your browser on the internet, type in healthy swaps, and you'll get a whole minefield of examples of things that you can try. If you're used to a chocolate bar a day, why not have a piece of fruit instead? And it's not as simple as that in lots of cases, but you got to start somewhere, and these are options that you can start to incorporate into your day-to-day habits of eating. Another thing that I like to talk about when I speak to my clients is the methods that they use to cook. So what do I mean by that? So, how often are we just kind of satisfied with just frying our food? I have to be honest, fried food, the flavors and the way the food is kind of like just presented to our taste buds really does kind of, it hits the spot, doesn't it? And I appreciate for all of those of you who may be listening thinking, I can't give up my fried food. I get that, and I've been there myself, and it's a hard journey, but it's a necessary one, because what you want to try and do is look for healthier ways to prepare food, because your nutritional intake is affected by the method that you use. So try baking or roasting instead of frying and grilling. These methods are better in terms of the nutrient content that you're exposed to, and you avoid the chemicals that are produced. So they are, I'm not going to name them because they're long names, unnecessary right now, but when you do your own research, you'll come across them. but there are chemicals that are produced by these methods of cooking which can be problematic to health, and there are conditions that are possibly being linked to the chemical exposure that is actually due to these methods of cooking. What healthier methods are there? So I've mentioned baking and I've mentioned, roasting. You can also consider broiling. You can also consider poaching. Pressure cooking is great. I've talked about pressure cooking before. If you haven't got a pressure cooker, please invest in one. You don't need to go for anything fancy. Go for something really simple. I actually did an experiment with a really cheap pressure cooker a couple of years ago, and I'm totally converted. I mean, I'm going to be buying a better one, hopefully soon, because I know this one's on its way out. But it served me so well. It makes my life so much easier when I'm kind of busy doing other things. And okay, the food doesn't taste the same as being cooked on the hob, but you're getting the nutrients that you need. You're getting the benefit from the food, and it's sometimes it works out way cheaper. Sometimes it works out better in terms of time saving. It's a really good investment to make. Think about slow cooking, stewing, simmering as well. All these methods don't actually promote the production of these chemicals, which are problematic, as I mentioned, and therefore, may make your food far more nutritious for your body. This does not mean we take an extreme. Again, in our faith, we take the middle path. Look to making nutritious cooking methods, your kind of go-to, as a general thing on the longer term. But this doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the occasional grilled, deep fried dish. It doesn't mean you have to totally omit those foods that are made that way, that just serve so well. Enjoy them. Don't feel guilty because you're not achieving anything by feeling guilty and eating food that's not nutritious. You want to use those methods sparingly and incorporate the healthier foods, or the methods I should say, on a longer term basis. So whilst you're on your journey, set yourself a target. So one healthy recipe, maybe once a week, maybe start there. If you're really on your journey already, maybe twice a week. Make it fun, make it enjoyable. Do your research, have a list maybe in advance, so you're not like waiting for the day to try something new. Have the ingredients to hand to prepare. So, it's difficult when you've got lots going on, when you've got a family to look after as well. You want to be able to look at things that you can do quickly, easily, and make them nutritious. So these are possible. I know that's a lot there, and you think, oh my goodness, how do I do that? There are so many easy recipes online. If you like videos, use YouTube. I use it very often. If you like recipes, generally you want to print them off, you can use your internet to search for those. Type in healthy recipes for kids, how to get your greens in. So many things that you can type in and get recipes for, and make it a ritual. Make it a once a week thing to begin with. If you are struggling, choose one day when you've got that time to be able to do that, and see how you feel. Maybe keep a diary of how things have gone. Share it with your family, share it with your friends. Make it go viral. Make other people do the same thing. Help others whilst you're on your own healing journey. This will help you, increase your nutrient intake. Remember, if you're adding a vegetable dish, you're getting more vitamins, more antioxidants, more plant nutrients, more fiber as well. So you're doing so much benefit by just doing the one thing per week. Remember though, this can become boring, so you want to kind of change things up. So you might want to keep one dish on a regular basis for a particular day, but then start changing things up for other days so that you're not doing the same thing on a long-term basis. I think about herbs, spices, things that make food exciting. Think about texture, think about preparation. The cooking methods will also change up the taste of a food. And you incorporate all these different things as you start to learn about them. We tend to be hungriest at the beginning of a meal. So another really good tip that I tend to kind of use on myself, and then I would share with clients, is to eat your healthy stuff first. So think about all your salads, your your greens, the things that you probably wouldn't want to eat so much of towards the end of a meal. So enjoy them as a starter. Use dressings, use condiments, these kinds of things that help you to kind of, consume all of your portion. Apple cider vinegar is great. Use salt and pepper. Use herbs and spices. Make it exciting. Have a decent portion. Remember, when we talk about portion sizes, which is a really important concept in nutrition, you want to be making half of your plate green, or as close as to. So think about all your vegetables, your non-starchy components. About half of your plate should really be coming from those, and you want to be getting every color of the rainbow. So I've talked about this before as well. You want to be able to incorporate color, nutrients. You want to be able to incorporate all the beneficial things into your diet and not compromise because you're adding them in at the end. So if you do that, that would be useful so that you get them in. That's the reason why I'm kind of suggesting that that's a good thing to try and do. And then, you tend to eat less as you go on in the meal. So, you want to kind of fill your belly with your greens if you can at the beginning. Another thing, and again, this one might come as a bit of a surprise to some, but it's something that I'm still asked about, and I think I spoke to someone just about a week or so ago about this, is you want to eat fruit, not drink it. What do I mean by that? So people will ask me, can I have an orange juice? I'm doing my, one a day or whatever it may be. And the funniest one was an orange juice with the bits. And I thought, no, because that's not the way it was designed to be consumed. So in nature, orange exists as a complete food on its own. You've got the fiber, you've got the vitamins, you've got the hydration coming from the orange. You want to eat it as it's presented to you. You don't want to be mushing it up. So you want to eat fruit in the nature that it's presented to you with. You're going to have your fiber, your water, your vitamins, your antioxidants. And, we know fruit and veg are going to support our health. We know all the benefits of that already. I don't need to go into that. You want to make the fruit the most friendly on your blood sugar level. Now, if you're pulverizing it, you're making a juice out of it, your blood sugar is going to spike. Your insulin's going to spike. And I've talked about this before. You don't want to be doing this. You want to eat the fruit in the form you actually get it. Now, does that mean you should be putting them into smoothies? No, because what you need to then do is think about combining them with vegetables, which should be the bigger portion of your smoothie, and then incorporating healthy fats and or protein. So you want to make that shake really balanced if you are using fruit. So that's a really good one to take on board, especially for all of those of you out there who love your juices. Think about what it is that you're actually putting into your body, whether or not that's actually serving you, whether or not, that is the actual way to be consuming fruit. Because I love fruit, and I don't tend to pulverize fruit unless I'm putting in lots of vegetables as well. And then I will add some chia seeds to that, or I add a protein powder. Depends on the mixture. Look for a recipe so you can make it you make it edible, because my family members accuse me of making unedible stuff to drink. So you don't want to be doing that. You want to be making something that's actually palatable, that your kids are going to have, your partner's going to want to have, and it's going to be pleasurable at the same time as providing you with lots of nutrition. Okay, so before I sort of go on, I want to just kind of highlight that, these tips are general in nature. So everyone who's listening out there, I appreciate you being there and hearing me out. This is just for, ideas. It's not kind of targeting any particular individual. I'm not providing any medical advice. This is something just to help you think about what you can do. And maybe even just remind you, maybe you've already thought of these things already, or you read something recently and you're like, oh, I'm going to try that. So just see it as a reminder in that case. So, if you're concerned about anything, you're worried about your health in whatever shape or form, I would always advise you to speak to your medical practitioner. Remember, they're the ones who are going to be diagnosing your condition based on your symptoms and based on all the tests and the work that they do on you. So you want to always maintain that relationship. It's always going to be your first port of call. And remember, that is always important to do. Don't kind of omit that thinking, I'm doing this on my own. It's not about doing things on your own. It's about finding the correct balance, having the basis on which to build. Even as a nutritional therapist in my work, I will always ask people to come to me with a diagnosis, particularly when I'm concerned about what I've heard in the discovery call. It's always something for me to work along with, and it helps me devise a better plan. So we don't work on our own. We work with other healthcare professionals, and GPs are certainly one of them. I worked with GPs when I was a pharmacist. I work with GPs now as a nutritional therapist as well. And it's always good to work together to get your client the best result. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Nutrition Show. You're joining me, Shazia, on Unity FM 93.5 FM. So we'll be diving into more tips that you can incorporate to try and make your everyday to-day eating habits and the foods that you consume a little bit more healthier. So before I dive in, I just want to put out a reminder again for all the listeners today that this discussion is for information purposes only. It does not constitute any medical advice. For any health issues or concerns that you have or you're worried about, you need more support with, please always consult your own medical practitioner. So what else can you do then? So maybe as you try to implement these things, you're going to find yourself cooking at home more often. So again, this is a really amazing one. There's nothing like cooking your own food. And I hear you if you're saying, I'm not a chef, I'm not good in the kitchen, I can't do it, it takes too long, I haven't got time. 101 excuses. I was there. And, if you look at the longer term effects of not doing it, it's far more expensive. We've got one body we've been gifted with. If you're not going to give your body the time it needs, you're going to be giving it time for illness later on. Now, I was very averse to the kitchen in my early 20s, even into my 30s. I just did not want to be in the kitchen because my experience of food was it takes too long to cook. Standing at a stove at the hob for hours at a time, I just couldn't do it. It just stressed me out, having particular quantities of certain things. I mean, I'm not saying that you should ignore that is important in some recipes, certainly. But all those things put me off. And I found that I had maybe a subconscious fear of the kitchen. So I never really wanted to be part of that room in terms of my presence. I didn't want to be there because I always felt stressed there. So as things changed, as I did my nutrition studies, as I realized things didn't have to be so complicated and that we could prepare so much easier food, and even the Asian foods that we have at home, you can prepare them in such a simpler way. I started to love the kitchen, and to be honest, I spend most of my day in the kitchen now. We've got an open plan kitchen, so it's great. It's a blessed kitchen. I can spend the whole day there because it's just something that I really take pleasure in now. And, it's finding your own comfortable zone within that room. You want to be friends, and you want to be friends with the kitchen. You don't want it to be your enemy. And as you start to prepare these meals, as you start to get comfortable with equipment in the kitchen, cooking times, whatever else you expose yourself to in the kitchen, you'll find that the kitchen also becomes your favorite room as well, to some extent. It is for me. So, if it works for you, great. But you will find that starts to happen. And, it becomes a joy. It becomes a pleasure rather than a chore and a hindrance. And you find that the food becomes, something that you start to miss, particularly when you're out and having to eat, say, from a restaurant or a cafe. if it's more than one occasion, consecutively, you'll probably start to miss home cooked food. And I do that now. I miss my own cooking, or something that's been prepared at home. So it's something to really start to kind of appreciate it, become part of it. Let it be your space. Don't let other people dictate to you. Let it be something that you enjoy. It's really easy to do. It's not something that you have to make anything complicated in. The world is your oyster. If you want to become a Michelin chef later on, please do. It's your journey. But when you're starting out, it's something that you don't want to overwhelm yourself with. You want to get comfortable with. It's really, really an amazing experience once you get into it. So that's quite a lot of stuff there already. I've probably been going on a lot there, but there are those just very basic tips that you can start to incorporate. So what else is it that you can then try and look into? Well, on a very basic level, and this is something that, is another very controversial area sometimes, is look at the types of foods that you incorporate when you're looking at low calorie or low fat. Especially if you're worried about your weight or you're worried about a health condition, some things like of that nature. I would say, without kind of making this too complicated, is always read the label and educate yourself on reading labels. For my clients, I always advocate consuming foods in their original form, because I want minimal ingredients in what they're consuming. What do I mean by this? I mean additives, I mean sugars, I mean binders, thickening agents, all these other things that are then used to compensate the foods for when they become low fat or low calorie or low sugar or whatever these types of, food kind of categories now that we see so often in supermarkets and stores. You need to really understand what it is that you're putting into your body. They say if you can't pronounce the name of an ingredient, you shouldn't be putting it into your body. Now, I studied chemistry and I studied pharmacy, and there were words, and names of drugs, etc., that, I still can't pronounce today. So you can imagine, if there are chemicals in our food which are pronounced in the same way, you need to be looking at them. You need to be educating yourself. And sugar is one of the things that I always educate people about, because sugar is my number one kind of go-to to manage when I'm working with a client. Sugar has been named under, I believe, 60 or so different names. So if you actually go online and do this for yourself, if there's nothing else you do today, please have a look at this. Familiarize yourself with the names that sugar can be disguised under in your food. It's going to serve you tremendously. Become familiar with this information and then utilize this when you're shopping. You want to kind of make sure that most of the food that you buy looks like what it comes out of the ground or off the tree or off the bush or whatever it might be. Yeah, you want to go whole foods. You want to minimize processed foods, because we're not designed to utilize processed foods. Our body doesn't know what to do with it. This is where we can start to link the issues that we're seeing today with the types of nutritional choices that we're making. So, look at these labels, understand what they're actually putting into the foods that you're consuming, and you minimize what you're going to put into your body when it comes to labeling. I mean, what does not have a label on it? A piece of fresh fruit in the supermarket. You want to think along those lines. You want to try and move towards those aisles in the supermarkets and in the the stores, and obviously grow your own. This is something that's so big and it's so underrated. This is something that you can build in the future. Get the kids involved. They'll love to see where fruit comes from. They'd love to see where, herbs, spices, vegetables, whatever it is that you can get going in the garden, where they come from. it goes to, one of the things that is so crucial, and I believe we're all guilty of it for different reasons, again, not to punish yourself, but to really kind of take note of, is how much sleep do we get? We're not sleeping enough. We're on our phones late till night. We're binge watching movies till night. We're arguing with our significant other, late into the night. We're up with illnesses. Okay, that's one that you can't really change, because we all get sick. But when you can manage your routine, sleep has to be at the top. Because remember, when you're sleeping, your body's recuperating itself, it's healing itself, it's allowing change in the positive sense to be made. You need that. Our bodies are not a machine. They need the rest. They need to be able to repair themselves. The damage that we're kind of exposed to on a daily basis. Whether it's self-inflicted, whether it's in the environment, whether it's from our emotions, whether it's from our, whatever it may be that we're coming into contact with. I mean, we're picking up toxins everywhere. And now if we're not allowing our bodies to sleep and repair and remove some of these things, then we're not really doing our bodies the justice it needs. 8 hours a day is what is the kind of stated normal. I would say work up towards 8 if you can. If you're not able to do the 8, you want to, and if you have the luxury of, try napping in the day. Now, I know there are two sides to this story. My understanding is, and my research says, that a nap, even if it's 20 minutes in the day, a power nap, is highly beneficial. I used to do it when I had the opportunity. Haven't been doing it for a long time, but it does make a difference. It reboots you for the rest of the day, and we need that rest. So if you can downtime during the day, go for it. Otherwise, look at your routine. Look at how you can incorporate those 8 hours of sleep. Go to bed after you've prayed your Isha Salah, your night prayer. Go to bed early. Come off the phones early. I know I'm a hypocrite saying this myself. It's something I'd like to try and do, but screen time at night is a big problem. The lights, it's keeping our brains alert. Likewise, in our homes, the bright lights, it's not really serving our bodies when it comes to unwinding, getting ready for sleep. So look at sleep hygiene, so much information online. Look at the things that you can do, whether it be taking, a warm bath, a comforting drink before you go to bed, whatever it may be that works for you. Prayers, I find prayers are really good at night. They help me to get off to sleep and calm my mind. Brain dumping, journaling, being grateful, thanking someone, whatever helps you get into that restful mode. It's an understated activity, underrated even. It needs to be part and parcel of our life, really. It really does need to be something that we focus on. How many conditions there are we seeing now where research is indicating that lack of sleep is actually are linked to? We don't really want to go down this road, inflammatory conditions as a result of poor sleep. So many out there that are really kind of, aggravated by the lack of sleep. Another really interesting one, and, great time of the year to be doing this, is to have your berries raw and fresh rather than in a packet. What do I mean by that? The ones in the packet tend to be coated in sugars and other ingredients, maybe preservatives. Sulfur dioxide is another one that may be an allergen for someone. They don't really compare. The nutrients in fresh fruit and veg don't really compare to those that are in a processed version. So try and get your berries fresh. I mean, we've got family members who've been doing berry picking, whether you get which is the best way to do it, because it's seasonal and you get them, fresh off the bush. You're getting your nutrients, your fiber, antioxidants, your phytonutrients, what could be better than, and they taste great as well. But then obviously if you can't do them that way, you're probably better going for a frozen or dried, dried as in powder version, I would suggest, rather than going for the sweetened candied version. I wouldn't go for those because I think they can be problematic. And as I said, that they're kept in that way, in that form, with other ingredients which you don't want to then start adding in. If you're looking at snacks, think about popped version of snacks. So popcorn is a good idea as an occasional, thing to add to your diet compared to fried crisps. It kind of limits what you're actually putting into your body. So air popped versions are great. Making your own is even better because you're not adding all the other bits and things that are going in, such as the sugars and the colorings and the excessive salt and perhaps even the wrong version of fats. Think about ways that you can make healthy snacks. If you're watching a movie with your kids, make your own popcorn at home. Another one that I've talked about before in some sort of very minor detail is thinking about the oils that you consume. So this is a topic in and of itself. I don't really want to go into the kind of detail of it. It's something that I would encourage every one of you to go away and research for yourself, because you might be surprised at what actually constitutes a healthy oil. But my question to people always is, what type of oils are you using and why? Can you substitute for a different type of oil? And if yes, which one? Do you always need to use an oil? What proportions do you use? And what benefits do each of these oils come with? So look at smoke points. So if you go online, type in smoke points of oil, you'll see the temperatures at which the oils can be heated to without becoming problematic. Now, we tend to use olive oil in our home quite often. And we get the olive oil, that's the cold pressed, not the mixed, refined versions that you get now. And it's normally a dark green colored. It tends to have a little bit of a bitter taste. And we use that to on our salads, to drizzle over other things as well, breads, etc. But we also use very little amounts of olive oil in cooking. There are two sides to that story. Because we use a small amount and we use it occasionally, I use it. So it's not something that I worry too much about. But you can have a look into the sort of the story behind that when you do the research that you can have a look at for yourself. We also consume coconut oil in moderation. So it's a saturated fat, but it's got lots of benefits. We use that in sort of various cooking, and then it's sort of utilizing baking, making healthy snacks, etc. I use it a lot for my cosmetic use on hair, on skin. I find it very beneficial. So coconut oil has a lot of benefits. Again, ask yourself, what are the benefits? How can I use it? How often do I use it? How much? These are questions to ask yourself because they will help guide you to utilizing the best oils in the best possible way. The ones that you need to be avoiding are the ones that cause inflammation in the body. They are the ones that are going to be problematic for your health, and they tend to be the vegetable oils. So have a look into the research, see what you find. You want to be consuming the best types of fats, whether they're liquid or solid at room temperature, because you want to be utilizing fats. Fats are, I believe, absolutely beneficial to health. You want to be using them in the right form, in the right manner. I found that my health improved when I changed my fats and changed how I use them, which ones I use, etc. And I'm sure they can do the same for you. Just a tip, if you're finding that you go back for seconds and thirds when you're eating, choose a smaller plate. Now, I would suggest to put all your food onto your plate at the first kind of sitting and just kind of monitor what you eat. Now, if you use a smaller plate, your brain is automatically going to think you've got a lot more food on there. It's just something that we visually kind of relate to. So making your plate smaller makes your portion size look a little bit bigger. So therefore, your brain is going to think, I'm going to be full with that amount of food. Focus on making half of your plate veggies, as I mentioned. Think about the colors of the rainbow. Then focus on your healthy protein. for a quarter, roughly. And then the other quarter can be made up of your starchy carbohydrates. So this is a very general tip. If you're struggling to try and find a balance, of course, the best way to do this is to work with a practitioner, because they will guide you for your specific needs, because that can vary. But on the whole, as a general kind of measure, if you like, that can get you started. That's where I start with my clients, and then I rejig their needs according to what it is that they're trying to achieve. But that is a really nice way to get someone started. And I find it's easier because you're not going back for your protein, and you're not going back for more carbs and then eating more than you expected, or eating less than you expected, because it helps you to sort of get that psychological need met, as well as the kind of the physical need of getting the food into your stomach. So that's a really good way to do this if you need to start, and work your way from there. And as I said, more detailed information will always come from a practitioner. So I think that kind of sums up some of the things I wanted to share today, because there's so much more. These are just general and random tips that people can utilize, and these are questions that do get asked by our clients, by people who call to find out about nutritional therapy. These things that you can do on a daily basis, you're doing them anyway, so why not sort of look at measures and procedures that you can put into place, which helps you to get the better of those things, while still enjoying the foods that you eat. A lot of this is actually down to kind of mindset, and that's a separate issue in and of itself. So, as you start to experiment with foods and things in the kitchen, as you get your partner involved, as you get your kids involved, you'll start to see a change in mindset as well, because food affects the brain, funnily enough. I know it's not something that we kind of relate to, but, all our body is affected by food in a direct way, in an indirect way. There are several pathways that are at work. We're very complex beings. It's never a one-way road. There's so many roads that interconnect that we need to kind of appreciate. And we need to start changing our mindsets, and that's a really hard thing. And I struggle with this myself. But it's something that, you can work on slowly and gradually. And you'll find that once you start experiencing the change for yourself, without being told, without being dictated to, you want to do this for yourself, and you'll see the difference in your body, in the way you feel, in the way you think. And this will help you with all sorts of other journeys that you've got. So it's such an amazing foundational change that I would recommend this to everybody, wherever you are, because there's just so much that you can do for yourself. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, that you want to try and make this part and parcel of your life. You want to make it something that, you can look back on many, many, many years into, being a senior and say, I'm glad I made that change then. I'm glad I taught my kids this then, because it'll pay dividends. You can't put a price on it. It's just so valuable. So that's me done a lot of talking today. I really hope that what you've heard, has kind of been useful in some shape or form. I appreciate that I haven't covered everything and it was kind of random. That was the idea. I just wanted to kind of get back in there and, just share some random things that you may not have thought about, or you have and you've tried and they worked well. As always, feedback is always greatly appreciated. If you want to get in touch, you can do. Feel free to call in. I always love speaking to people about food. It's kind of where, I come alive as well. So, feel free to, share and learn. And, I learn from people as well. So it's never a one-way thing. It's always something that we kind of share and join in together. So I hope what you've heard has been insightful and it helps you looking into what could work for you and your health, as well as your family's health and those you influence. Remember to seek support from your own healthcare providers. Don't take this as medical advice. It's certainly not intended to be. It does get more complex. It does get more tailored as we focus on individuals rather than a group. But obviously, we do that in private clinic. I hope to speak to you again and share other things that will benefit your health. Obviously, if you've got ideas, please ring in with those too, because that helps me kind of then think about what to speak about on a future show. Grateful to have had the opportunity to kind of connect with you today. I hope you keep well. Until next time, this is Shazia on Unity FM on the Nutrition Show. Please take care. Assalamu alaikum.